Let's get real. R.E.A.L. Today we're going to place the final threads in our spiritual tapestry, which I think of quilts as being our modern tapestries, don't you think? Yes. For living from, through, and as the highest idea of God that we possibly can. This is the thread that ties it all together. In fact, without it, the tapestry would not hold together. As you've probably noticed, I love acronyms. We've always loved acronyms. Last week, Suzanne shared the acronym SIN. Who remembers what SIN stood for from last week? Does anyone remember?
Separation in...
Is what?
Separation in nature, a belief in separation in nature from God. So that's our acronym for SIN. It isn't something that's awful. It's just a belief that we're separate from spirit. But today we're going to get real as we recognize everything, come on, as love. Get real. Recognizing everything as love. One of Ernest Holmes' most powerful statements was in the very beginning of the Science of Mind textbook. Love points the way and law makes it happen. Powerful? Yes. It's an application here in our human experience that can sometimes be pretty elusive. So today we're going to explore in a very concrete way, concrete terms, how love can point the way to a life of genuine happiness and fulfillment so that law can make the way possible, because they work together. So what is love anyway? Okay, we're going to be here all day if we really get into that discussion, but this is really quite a question that poets and philosophers of the ages have pontificated upon. Tombs have been written about love. Innumerable songs have been dedicated to love. Countless sermons, yes, and talks have been given about love. And this morning, I'm going to add my 2 cents on this subject again, because I've talked about love quite a bit. So we're going to look at love from 2 perspectives today. First, to lay the groundwork, we're going to look at love from the macrocosm, the big picture. Then we're going to look at love from the level of the microcosm. Love at the level of the macrocosm. Ernest Holmes was somewhat poetic in his Science of Mind textbook about love at the level of the macrocosm. Here's just a few things that he had to say. Love is the self-givingness of spirit. It is the desire of life to express itself in terms of creation. Love is the cosmic force whose sweep is irresistible. It is the central flame of the universe, nay, it is the very fire itself. Love is an essence, an atmosphere which defies analysis as life itself, as does life itself. It is that which is and cannot be explained. Love reigns supreme all over. The essence of love, while elusive, pervades everything. Words cannot express its depths or meaning. A universal sense alone bears witness to the divine fact. God is love, and love is God. That's very beautiful and poetic, isn't it? But the first sentence that Holmes writes is really what God's love is to me. It is the self-givingness of spirit. And implied here, although not directly stated, is that this self-givingness of spirit has absolutely no strings attached to it. No strings. It is freely given without condition. It is given to each and every expression of life equally. God's love, which I'm going to call real love, is a constant and genuine concern for our happiness and well-being with no regard for what it might get from us. I think that this is also the definition of grace. God's grace is the action of God's love, being constantly, freely, and completely given, completely devoid of conditions. Holmes tells us in the Science of Mind glossary, which almost is a whole book in itself to read, grace is the givingness of spirit to its creation. I think we might be able to intellectually grasp these ideas, but the big question is, can we feel them? Can we feel them? Can we feel God's complete, unconditional love for us? Can we breathe it in and have it fill our very beings with a sense of peace and calm, a sense that all is well, a sense that you're always protected and provided for? Can we really bring these words of Holmes into our very soul? Holmes says, "We are fed from the table of the universe, whose board is ever spread with blessedness and peace, whose loving kindness has never been fathomed, whose grace and truth are cornerstones of reality. More than this, we could not ask. Greater than this could not be given." If you can really feel those things at your core, if you can really say, yes, I know that love, that's fantastic. That is wonderful. My guess, however, is that for some of us, those are just words. You know, we intellectually read them. We think, yeah. But we don't feel it. They're beautiful words, but they don't reach the level at your heart. You want them to. Oh my gosh, we all want to feel that. But they just don't get there. They don't get to that place. It feels like there's some kind of wall that's there. And you might not want to admit it because you're afraid that people will think you're not spiritual enough. Who's ever had that feeling? Okay, yeah. And you're probably thinking right now that you're the only one that doesn't get it. Let me tell you, it goes in and out. Boy, sometimes I get it, and then, boy, I'm not there. I don't get it. It's an in and out kind of thing sometimes. Everyone feels it. Everyone else feels it, at least part of the time, I think. Why can't we feel it? Why can't I feel it? Obviously, something is wrong with me. I'm not doing it right. That's what we're thinking, right? Perhaps, just perhaps, you check this out with yourself to see if the idea fits. Just check this out. Perhaps you can't feel God's love because you've rarely, if ever, had that kind of love in your own human experience. Remember, we have to have it before we can give it, right? And it's completely foreign to you. Perhaps it wasn't something that was part of your experience before, and it's beyond your comprehension. It's unfathomable. You have nothing like it in you that knows it. You're like the natives on the isolated island. Who saw What the Bleep Do We Know? Years ago. It was one of the first ones. Okay, this is a story from that. You see these natives on the isolated island who'd never seen ships. They'd never seen a ship before sailing up to the island. And these ships finally found their way to this remote island and came into the harbor. And the natives couldn't see them. They couldn't see those ships because they had absolutely no context to put them in. As told in one of the movies, the movie that we saw, What the Bleep, they had no reference. How can you see something if you don't know what it is? And they couldn't see them. So listen to this. There is nothing wrong with any of us. There's nothing wrong with you. There's nothing wrong with me. We just don't have the context to put God's love in. But we're going to address how to get a context as we look at the next level of real love, the next level, which is the microcosm. So let's look at microcosm ideas. Number 2. Holmes says, "It is written that God is love, and that we are his expressed likeness, the image of the eternal being. Love is self-givingness through creation, the impartation of the divine through the human." Holmes says also that love is at the center of our being, and the calm, continuous pulsations of life are governed by love. And these are beautiful, beautiful spiritual truths. But here's the deal with spiritual truths at the level of the microcosm. They mean nothing if we do not embody them, if we do not live them. Change your thinking, change your life. It's a fabulous spiritual concept. We all say, yes, right on, fantastic. And then we go right on thinking, just as we always have. And we wonder where God is and why our lives have not changed. The same is true with love. We espouse love ideas. We say we are love. We quote Jesus, who said, "Love thy neighbor as thyself." We sing songs about love. I preach sermons on love. And then we leave here and we get angry at the man who cuts us off in traffic. Hello, right there. We get irritated at our young children for whining and tugging at us when we're on the phone, or
Or big children.
our big children, or friends who have young children and you're trying to have a conversation and they're constantly interrupted and you know that their child just realized mom's on the phone and they want to go talk to them. Or we try to control our adult children and get exasperated when they don't do what we think they should do, because of course we know, right? We get resentful at our spouse for being insensitive. We get frustrated at our boss because she makes unreasonable demands. We snap at a coworker because he didn't get us the information we requested on time. We are intolerant of a friend who goes back once again to an abusive boyfriend. We blame our parents for not loving us enough. And we engage in all sorts of unloving, in fact, sometimes even hate-filled acts to ourselves, both mentally and with such things as negative self-talk, and physically with such things as addictions. And that can be chocolate, because that's one of my addictions, and on and on and on. I would say that we don't really know much about expressing the love, the real love that we are. So what does it mean to really love here at the human level, the microcosm? And this is something that I've worked on. You know, it's so easy to get that grand idea of the great spirit love. But when we bring it down to the microcosm, how do we do this? How do we do this? Something I've wanted to understand for a long time. And I've struggled with wanting to be loving in all areas of my life. Boy, it's so easy to love that puppy. I've got a little tiny puppy, and it's so easy to hold her in my arms and just love that little puppy. The love's just all right there. Everything. But there's so many areas that are a little harder to love in my life. And yet I find myself doing a lot of those things that I just listed, you know, just going back into the habit of being irritated with other drivers, or being annoyed that my children aren't acting the way I think they should, or being exasperated with a husband who hasn't been reading my mind. What is that about, you know? And then we walk away from the situation and we feel pretty darn bad, don't we? And we fail to live up to what we say we're going to do. And we vow to do better the next time. I'm going to do better. I'm going to be more loving. Come on, I understand this. I'm going to practice it starting tomorrow, right? And we know that it's all love. And I vow to express that I love better next time. And because I'm a good metaphysician, I know that love points the way and that law makes the way possible. So, what is the law making possible for me when I'm not expressing the love that I am? What are we setting in motion when we are not expressing the love that we know that we are? It makes the way for me to experience more of what I'd really rather not experience. Can you see how easy it is to get in this downward pattern, this downward cycle? Holmes says, to the degree that we embody love, we are love. So people who love are loved. Sounds pretty simple. But then the next time comes and I go back to responding the same way. It has become that habit. Has anyone else had that experience? So what's the answer? I know. At least I know for me that author Greg Bayer, excuse me, I want to say Greg Braden because we've been talking about him lately, but Greg Bayer, he was at Asilomar. And that was not this summer. He was there last year, and I got several of his books. And I think he's the one who's found the answer. At least I really resonated what he said. And his Real Love books can teach us how to give and receive genuine love and to remember the definition at the level of the macrocosm. It holds the same at the level of the microcosm. Real love is a genuine concern for happiness and well-being of another without regard for what I will get in return. It's a big order. So in the past, I've been asked a lot of questions about living the spiritual life. And I want to answer them. I propose to answer them all right here. So here are some of these questions, and many of them come from the book. How do you create and cultivate the bond of family and friends? Give love. How can I love myself in spite of appearances in the middle of trauma, pain, and darkness when I don't feel lovable? Get loved. What is the spiritual practice I could do to cultivate happiness? Love thy neighbor as thyself. How do you integrate all of this into my life outside of this center? Give and get love. Why? Why would we do any of this? To be genuinely happy and fulfilled. And I don't mean to be flippant or make light of these questions. I really believe that these are truly the answers. Sometimes the answers that are the hardest to do are the simplest ones. You know, we're always looking for, no, it has to be harder than that, more involved, more complex. But not always. Here's Ernest Holmes' answer to why to do it. Without love, nothing can be accomplished. With love, all things are possible. And when we love, our prayers are answered and the gift of heaven is made. And we enter into this paradise through the gateway of love toward one another and toward God. Love is greater than all else and covers a multitude of mistakes. Love overcomes everything and neutralizes, I love this, neutralizes all that is unlike itself. Whew. There's that Star Trek vaporizing thing right there. The little love pistols, right? Vaporizing all that is unlike itself. So how do we give real love? Remember, it is a genuine concern for the happiness and well-being of another without regard for what I will get in return. Before we can give it, we have to have a bit of it for ourselves. It's almost like priming a well. Who's ever primed a well before? Maureen has primed a well. We have to throw some water in there, right? To get the water that's in there to flow. How do we receive it? Where do we get the love to prime our love well? How do we do that? By telling the truth about ourselves to others who are capable of seeing who we are, seeing us, warts and all, and accepting us and loving us. Wow, where do we find someone like that? Look around. This is where you find someone like that. Every person here is capable of seeing everyone else, warts and all, of who they truly are and accepting and loving them for who they are. It can seem like a tall order, but we have to realize and accept that telling the truth about ourselves means taking 100% responsibility for ourselves and our experiences. And that can be kind of scary sometimes. Remember the communication training that was popular a while back? I don't know, I'm sure all of you have heard about this, where you'd use the I statement. You know, you wouldn't say, you do this to me and you do that. You know, you'd say, I feel this way. When you do that, I feel this way, right? You know what? That's just blaming in sheep's clothing. You're still blaming them. Who cares how you feel? You are responsible for how you feel. They can't do anything to you. They can't, whatever it is they're doing, you know, you have choices. You have choices of what you can do.
4 agreements.
Yep, the 4 agreements. Once you realize that you have control of your thoughts and feelings, then nobody can do anything to you. And it can really be quite exhilarating and powerful to claim 100% responsibility for ourselves, as well as extremely annoying at times. Sometimes you just want to blame someone else. This can't possibly be my fault, right? So how do we do this? How do we begin or continue? We could tell the truth about ourselves as we talk about people and events in our lives. It's good practice. We talk to people about what we do all the time, don't we? With a little thought and courage, we can turn those moments into extraordinary experiences. Kind of reminds me of your complaint-free bracelets, you know, for 20
Or if I
21
don't get
days.
mad at him, maybe he'll stop making me mad.
Yes, another Suzanneism. We're going to compile a book.
Don't get mad at him anymore. Maybe he'll stop making me mad.
Yeah, we're going to compile a book of Suzanneisms. I think it'll be a great fundraiser. I know it. Here's a few examples from Real Love. And this is on page 87 and 88. This is a person who is writing. I was really irritated with my husband yesterday when he didn't name a specific thing. I don't know, pick up after himself, pick up the trash, whatever. And then I realized that I don't have the right to demand that he do everything I want. That's pretty selfish of me, really. And if I'm angry, that's my choice, not his fault. All the time we've been married, I've been demanding things from him and expecting him to change, and it's caused a lot of unhappiness. I haven't been accepting him and loving him very much. I've been more interested in my own happiness. I have a lot to learn about relationships. And here's another quote from the book. I go to church every Sunday, but I often feel like a hypocrite. I still get angry at the people around me, and I often don't feel very loving or forgiving. I wonder if I'm a very good example of the things I claim to believe. One more. I was lecturing my daughter about something yesterday when I realized that I couldn't remember the last time I sat with her and told her I loved her. I don't remember my parents ever doing that with me. Maybe that's why I don't do it with my daughter. I've always thought to myself as a loving parent, but I think I need to change some things. And what's really interesting about this, as I was reading this, I thought, my dad doesn't believe in saying I love you because his dad never said it. So he thinks that's the way it should be. And I will tell him that I love him. Of course, he's 87 years old. I do not expect him to change anytime soon. And he's very grateful when I tell him that I love him. He always says thank you. But it's just not in him but that was a decision he made because of what his parents. And I thought, I made the opposite. So we always have a choice. We can look at something and say, well, I'm doing something because that's how I was raised. If it doesn't work, we can change it anytime. These are powerful, powerful, powerful things to say. And when we take such 100% responsibility for ourselves and freely admit our mistakes and see that we are still accepted, we learn that we can be loved even when we're wrong, weak, or being foolish. And by the way, I found that check. Okay, speaking of being foolish.
I found the check.
Rich found the check.
All right.
We found the check. It was a good thing. When we feel loved under those conditions, what is there to hide? There's no fear. There's no fear then. And that's such a great feeling. I can make a mistake and know that Suzanne still loves me, that Polly still loves me, that Rob and Barb and everyone here still loves me. It's a good thing. It's a good feeling.
Beat the people I work with. So.
Perspective is another really good thing. So I invite you today to start dipping your toes into this way of getting loved this week. Because the more you prime your own pump, the more you're able to be love, to give love at the level, to love at the level of the microcosm and love at the level of the macrocosm as well. Holmes says on page 459 of The Science of Mind, the two great commandments are to love God and our brothers and sisters. On these hang all the law and the prophets. Love is a complete unity with life, and we cannot enter this state unless we are in unity with all that lives. For all life is one. To love God alone is not enough, for this would exclude our fellow man. To love our fellow man alone is not sufficient, for this would be too limited a concept of God. When we realize that God and we are one and not two, we shall love both. We shall love one another as expressions of God, and God as the life principle of all. And when we are able to do this, we will have woven the golden thread that holds our entire spiritual tapestry together. I promise. And so it is.